Welcome, lovely one, to the Meant for More podcast. My name's Lisa Clifford, and I am building the world's most empowering Meant for More movement, leading millions of heart-led purpose seekers from feeling insignificant to invincible. So I truly hope you enjoy this next episode. Welcome, lovely ones, and today we have an absolute treat. We have Christine Mclean. Now, I've known Christine Mclean, we think, since 2009, when you did a firewalk with me at Woodhall Hotel and Spa when I was part of the Institute of Directors.
Yes.
Firewalk and Institute of Directors don't normally go in the same breath, but they did when I was there. And since then, we've had this beautiful friendship. But the reason why I've chosen you today for our wonderful viewers and listeners is because you are somebody that I absolutely admire. I admire the way that you touch the hearts and minds of people that you work with. You bring a normality that is like a Trojan horse, that is packed with power and inspiration and change and transformation with every coaching session you do with your lovely clients, although clients feels a bit sterile, but I know you do, and with your training courses. And I always consider you to be someone who has incredible grace. You might not walk like gracefully.
What do you mean?
But you, and I'm going to tell a story a bit later on about an experience I had with you was the epitome of grace, and I'll share it a bit later. But I always love every coffee we have together, every phone call, every text. I always come away from being with you feeling a little part of me on the inside has been ignited, and that's rare and very, very special, Christine.
Thank you.
So let's begin with my opening question to you, really. This podcast is all about when we feel that stirring, that ache, that we are meant for more. And is there an experience, a story that you can share from your life where you had that undeniable ache or stirring that you were meant for more?
Yeah, I think there's been a few times in my life where I've felt that, really. The point at which I felt like I could start my own business and I could support people and use my skills in different ways. A time when I felt that the relationship that I was in just wasn't my life, but I was kind of staying there. And even now, there's a little bit in me that thinks, yeah, there's a little bit more. There's a little bit more that I'm meant for, and manifesting that to come towards me just right now. So
Do you know, there's so much that I love in what you've just said. I have to not interrupt. I mean, I do interrupt because I think if I don't, I will totally forget with my brain fog. But anyway, I want to go into each of those moments. But I love that I consider you a hugely successful, I mean, you play it down, but a hugely successful coach and trainer in the business world. And I love the fact that you think, I can feel it in me now that I'm ready, that there's more that in me to explore. Is it explore, or is it do, or is it What is it when you're in it? Because it's really brilliant that you're in a fresh wave of meant for more. I feel it's like a wave, um, or how would you describe the feeling?
There's something inside that says you can. You can. I know you can. And it feels like a little fire, a little burn. And it's always there. It's something that you can ignore if you really, really try. But then you ask yourself, do I want to ignore that? Because it's a little bit scary as well. So it's a little bit like the firewalk. It's a little bit scary. Am I going to get burned? Do I think that I am equal to this challenge? And what does that mean?
Oh my God, you have to pause for a moment. That is gold. All of what you said is just gold, because I think that's the perfect description of when you have that inkling or that knowing that you're meant for more. It's almost like, oh, I'm going to have to be really conscious now. Because we sleepwalk a lot through
Of course we
life,
do.
don't we? And then when we come to do a firewalk, which is a metaphor for life as well as an experience, it requires us to be really conscious of all the discomfort or the unfamiliarity of uncertainty and not knowing. I don't know for sure this outcome, and that am I going to get burned equals in real life of am I going to fail? Am I going to lose friends? Am I going to lose identity? Am I going to lose income? Am I going to lose my foothold in the market if I change or add a direction in?
And what am I going to have to let go of? What am I going to have to let go of to be able to step into this? Because oftentimes I always say, if you're going to grab something new, you've only got so much. So you're going to have to let go or loosen your grip on something else. What is that going to be?
Let go or loosen your grip on something else. What do you think, either for yourself or for others, is the thing that we need to either loosen our grip of or let go of most commonly?
I would say most commonly maybe our fear.
Of?
So you know
Do you
me,
feel like you're in a
Lisa.
coaching session?
Yeah,
I just thought that
yeah.
was gonna hang on.
You know me, Lisa. I'm very much into what my gut tells me first.
Yes.
And my gut told me first, success.
Oh, I love that. And I think for anybody listening, we always think that people are, there's an assumption that we think people are going to be a fear of failing. And it's a bit like Marianne Williamson says in the book Return to Love, in the Our Deepest Fear is not that we are inadequate, it is that we are powerful beyond measure.
I
And
think it's that.
success. We have to loosen our grip or let go of the fear of being successful. Our work is
It's
done
true.
here.
Absolutely. Cup of tea.
And I wonder, for anybody listening, if they were to pause for a moment and think about the thing that they have that meant for more feeling towards, that their mind is starting to reveal to them glimpses of it, things that we notice that we're intrigued about or fascinated in. What if we were to let go of fear of success? What would that fully formed picture look like? And dare I ask, and you can tell me, Lisa, I never signed up for this, but you can say no. I might edit the no out. But can I ask what you think what you might be meant for more of? Do you know what
Yes.
it is, or is it because you said it was an
Yeah.
inkling?
Yeah. So it's a bit of a departure from what I normally do. But it's something that's been a thread throughout my life from being a child, and that is performance. Now, you could say that training is performance. You know, when you're teaching people in front of a huge group of people, that's performance. So it's always been a thread for me. But I've been going to acting classes, formal acting classes, for about 5 years.
Not only that, in case you don't say it out of modesty and grace, you've been in a film.
I have, yeah, I've been
Well,
the lead in a film, in a small indie film that's on Amazon, which I'm very proud of.
what's it called?
Well, for those of you that hate gore and guts, it is not for you. It's called Mary Had a Little Lamb. It's an indie film. It's like a Texas Chainsaw Massacre kind of film.
Was it?
But
Can I just ask you a
yeah,
question? I know you're in the middle of a paragraph here. Did you imagine you'd be in a horror, gory film or did you have a romantic notion that you'd be in something like Sense and Sensibility or
as you say, I don't walk with grace, so I don't think Sense and Sensibility would have been one for films I'd have thought about.
I have seen you in this film, and I doubt they're going to be knocking on your door. The way you acted so well in this film, it'll be difficult to. You might be typecast now.
I might be typecast as a psychological killer. Did I? No, I absolutely did not think that was where it was going to be. But I enjoyed the process, and I think that was the biggest thing. Oh my gosh, there's so much to learn, and I love learning. And so what I'm trying to do now is to think of going forward in my acting as learning. I'm going to learn. I'm going to learn about acting. I'm going to learn about the whole process of being filmed. I mean, it's fascinating. It's a fascinating process.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so you started to say before I interrupted this inkling that you've got, where since you were little, you've always had this thread of performance all the way through your life and included in training. And I've seen you train and you bring it to life. If you've not been in a training room with Christine Mclean, you're missing out. She brings it to life and you're spellbound. It's true, absolutely spellbound by this ordinary looking, red-headed, sassy woman who in her spare time is a psychopath. Anyway.
Yeah, but only in spare time.
That's why it's spellbound. You don't take your eyes off her in case she goes into character.
Pulls a knife on you.
Yeah, but so you were saying there's an inkling of more in that direction, and is it still being formed in you, or have you got a good idea of what your brain is what your mind is showing you it wants to lead you into next?
There's a good dose of fear, and I've been watching the flame for a little while. But I do recognise this process. So way back when I started my own business, I used to think to myself, how come other people can have businesses and I can't? And then I started to think, well, you can if you give it a go. Yeah, but what's the drawback? What's the fear? And then I used to look at like shops and people having businesses, and I used to drive past them and think, oh, they've got business, why can't I have a business? So what I'm doing now is I'm looking on the TV and watching films and programs thinking, I could do that. If they can do that, why can't I do that? So it is a process that I recognise that I'm going through at the minute.
It's interesting. Why did you want to have your own business? Because it sounded having your own business is an aspect of doing something else. But why did you want your own business?
So I am a nurse and midwife, primary care nurse, practice nurse for 10 years, moved into various development and service improvement roles, and was gathering knowledge and skills and doing more performance work, doing more teaching. And I just thought, wouldn't it be wonderful to do the great bits of my job and not have the rubbish bits of my job? Because everybody's job has rubbish bits. And I thought, wouldn't it be great to do that every day and get paid for it? And I remember I went on an NLP course, was the first thing that I did. And the tutor said, if you find a job that you love, you never work a day in your life. And I thought, oh, I'd like to never work a day in my life. And that was kind of the driving thing. So I decided what I was good at, tested the market, and then thought, yeah, I can do this. And that was 2009.
And then since then, you've just been, well, tell us what you've been doing for not working a day in your life.
No, I've
What
not
does that
worked a
look
day in my
like?
life. Oh, so there's flexibility with running my own company, which is great. I get to meet amazing people. You've been one of them. I get to work with fabulous people.
Yes.
You know, I get to stand in front of people and deliver training or work one-to-one, and I love that buzz of, you know, at the end of the session when some people come up and say, that was great, I will know. And then people might come up later and say, oh, I saw you last year and what you said was blah, blah, blah. And that was just amazing for me. And I just think, I'm making a difference.
Yes, making a
And I
difference.
like that. I love that.
And you know, the thing that strikes me is you're making a difference on your terms. Like the difference, because I know when you have a job, you're doing what you've been told to do. So sometimes it can be difficult to buy into your own purpose when you're doing a job for someone else, because you know you're fulfilling a need that you're being told to fulfill. But when you're working for yourself, and I think that's often the bridge that people have to walk over or create when they're having that I'm meant for more. You know, mine was I'm meant to be doing this on my terms, or I'm meant to be working for myself. But how do I go from where I am now, because I was employed, to doing it for myself? But when you're doing it for yourself, you're being driven by your own sense of purpose. That's your fuel. That's that inner spark, that inner fire that you talk about is, you know, you can feel when it's warming up. You can feel when it's saying, right, we're ready for the next path to walk. So can we just go back to something that you said at the beginning, which was you knew you were meant for more when you were in a relationship you were in at the time? Because I also think that's another area in people's lives where we have a sense that either we've outgrown something or someone's outgrown us, or it doesn't serve where we want to be in our life, or it just is actually plain old not great. What was it for you? What was your meant for more moment in the relationship you were in? Because it's harder. I think it's harder for people to leave relationships because they doubt themselves before they doubt another person, don't they?
Absolutely. I think absolutely. I mean, there were so many meant for more moments in that particular relationship. So many. And so many that I completely ignored.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah.
Particularly, which ones were the ones you ignored, and why do you think you ignored them?
Behavioural things. Behavioural things, you know. He would say he would do something and he wouldn't do it. Well, that's a trust thing. And I'd think, well, you know, that's only 20% of the religion. And it's kind of a slippage. I was listening to a podcast about from a divorce lawyer in America. And he was saying there is a degree of slippage in relationships.
I saw the same clip.
Yeah, when things happen, little things, and then little things, but they're only little things, so you ignore them. And then the little things get a bit bigger and it slips. And I think there were a number of times in that particular relationship, and what kept me in it was fear. What will I do? What will I do? Because I was married. What will I do? Will I be able to keep the house? I was running my own business, so oh my gosh, what I'm going to do if I don't have the backup of that extra person's money?
And that's a massive factor.
It is a massive factor. And I had 2 kids, and and not with him, they weren't his kids. And so
They were before him. So for
yes,
anybody listening,
yeah, they were before him.
she didn't have 2 kids that are not his while she was with him. That would be quite a bit of slippage.
That'd be a lot of slippage.
That would have been a whole mountain of
a whole
skiing
mountain of
slippage.
But so yeah, there was all of that relationship stuff and things like that. And I remember very distinctly sitting early morning, sitting on the sofa in the living room, thinking, this isn't my life. This is not, I remember saying it to myself, this is not my life. This isn't how it's meant to be. And then you come to the realisation that you've got to do something about it yourself. But then, luckily, and I mean this truly and honestly, he gave me a gift of having an affair. And that was the gift that just kept on giving. And that was my ability to say, right, that's it. Legitimately.
Do you think that life supports us in that strange way? We think that life is putting barriers or pain in our way, and actually it's smoothing the way for you to have the outcome that you want. The moment you thought, this is not my life, but how am I going to get out of it? By having the affair, meant that you had to take no turning back action.
Yeah, I
Put you
believe
on your
that.
path.
I believe setting intentions is really important. And I don't think I set the intention of, oh my gosh, I wish he'd just do something that ended it. My intention was, I'm meant for more.
Your intention was the outcome. Your intention was, I need to be living my life.
Yeah.
Being true to me.
Being happy.
Yes. Do you think that people can often think being happy is secondary, and therefore they don't take the action because of the uncertainty, or because of the bills, or because of
Don't know whether I thought it was secondary.
you didn't. You took the action.
Do I think that people think happiness is secondary? That's a difficult one. I don't know, because people, human beings, I'm guessing, want to be settled and happy, but maybe there's something in there about, I would rather be feeling like this than frightened of the alternative. Maybe that is putting it secondary. I don't know. But it feels less conscious than putting it secondary. It feels like the fear is less. If I stay unhappy, the fear is less, and the fear is bigger than my unhappiness. It's that comfort zone thing, isn't it?
Or familiar zone.
Familiar zone.
Because I wonder whether, when you knew you were meant for more, I think it creates quite a lot of discomfort in the knowledge of, I'm in a space. It's that thing of, I describe it like, I'm here, but I feel like I'm meant for more over here. And then when we know that, this becomes very, I think there's lots of words for it, but one of them is uncomfortable and unfamiliar. Over there feels unfamiliar, and I think that the comfort zone becomes
uncomfortable.
Uncomfortable.
And I often say that when your comfort zone becomes uncomfortable, that's when you know stuff is happening internally. And I always feel that comfort zones are there, but in that discomfort, it might move to there. And that becomes your new comfort zone. And that's growth, isn't it?
Yes,
That's growth.
it is. And I think the mind, I always think the mind reveals part of what's possible for us in flashes of images. I mean, I see things in images, in flashes of images, but it reveals just a little bit of at a time so that we then get into acceptance of the possibility that that could be for us. And then when we've seen that bit, when we have a bit more shown to us, where we get to, I can't unknow this. I can't unknow that I visualized this or seen it. And because I've seen it, I feel like I've experienced it. So it feels like it's meant for me. When you did then take action and leave your husband, what did it take to take those steps of such stepping away from what wasn't working for you, but into a life that you knew you were meant for, but it had it fully shaped in your mind? How did you take those massive steps?
I think there was an element of courage. There was also an element, and this is a bit strange, but maybe it was just the situation. There's also an element of anger. Anger. Anger is a very powerful emotion to push, isn't it? So how I took the steps was an element of anger, an element of courage, but a real focus. I had to focus on keeping the kids safe, keeping me safe, financially and emotionally, and drawing on people, drawing on your networks, pulling people in, asking people for help. Is really important, I think.
It is, because when we go to the tribal community, it takes there's a village that supports a family.
Yeah.
People are not alone doing this. I've just written down anger. I think anger is, I feel like our system creates anger or allows anger to be present because I think it brings a pace, doesn't it? It brings a pace and a certainty out of somewhere and into somewhere else. I think anger is like a driver. I mean, it can be perceived as a negative emotion because it can also appear on occasions to be destructive.
Yeah.
But also sometimes some things need to be destroyed so that we don't go back. And I don't mean destroyed in physical abuse or attack. I mean that thing where we burn the metaphorical house down when we leave, and sometimes we think, well, there's that saying, isn't there, don't burn your bridges, but then there are sometimes where our nervous system and our psyche knows we better burn that bridge because we never want to go back over it. And so I think anger can bring about quite a lot of good. What are your thoughts?
I think it's that containment, isn't it? So it's like, let's go back to the fire analogy. For me, the fire analogy is a great one because you put some fuel on it, but when you do your fireworks, you'll put fuel on the fire to get it going, to give it an energy and a force, but it has to be contained so that it doesn't burn all the trees down around it. So it has to be contained. So there's something about contained energy. And sometimes that is a bit of anger, anger at why did I stay there so long? But so long as you don't, for me, turn it in on yourself to be detrimental to self, it's that containment of that fuel and maybe turning it in your mind into fuel. Oh, what do I feel? I feel anger. Well, why do I feel anger? Well, you shouldn't have stayed there that long. Okay, but you did. Right. Okay, so what does it mean? Let's move forward. Let's move and use that fuel within boundaries to move forward.
Well, there's so many things that you've just said there, especially in that metaphor of using the firewalk. I think the fuel goes in the fire. Some people build fires with the fuel going on the outside, and I have the fuel on the inside. And that's a great metaphor of the fuel being on the inside. So it's energizing. And then the containment, you're right, but there's also the we fire tend. And so with the anger, tending that anger is also another great metaphor of containing it and tending it. You know, you contain it by tendering it. And I think asking the question of what are the components of anger that I need for this situations now? Because we can think that anger comes in a big bluster and a red mist, can't we? But how else does anger present itself? And I think it comes as drive that gets us out of the fire.
Yeah, yeah.
And so the question I want to ask is, so when you stepped away from your relationship, you were self-employed, 2 children, paying your own mortgage, your own bills. Children are expensive, paying for them. What did that look like for you in terms of success? And what did you have within you that you didn't know you had before you left your husband?
It took a lot of juggling of time. Took a lot of extra work, but you never work a day in your life if you're working for yourself. I think it took, what did I have inside myself? Courage. And I think a resilience that I didn't know that I had. So there was one particular time, because my business at the beginning was very successful, but I got to a bit of a boom and bust point, probably 4 years in. And it's probably around about the time that, my relationship broke up. So I got to a bit of a boom and bust, took my eye off the ball, and ended up with 1 month's mortgage in my bank account, and that was it. And I was sitting online thinking, what am I going to do about this? What am I going to do about this? And I'd at the time I was doing a networking thing that I'd paid for, and the guy that was running the networking thing had put something online, and I was the first to comment on it. I don't even know what it was, but within about 15 minutes my phone rang, and it was this guy that was running this national networking, and he said, oh, you're the first to comment on my post, so I always ring the person that's first to comment.
Wow.
And I said, oh my gosh, right, okay. I was a bit awestruck, because national guy. And he said, so what's going on for you with your business? And I was like, oh, well. So I told him, and I've got a month's money in the bank. And he just said, right. He says, well, you're going to have to come out swinging then, aren't you? And I said, what? And he said, well, it sounds to me like you're backed up towards the edge of a cliff. He says, and you're going to have to come out fighting. And I said, yeah. He said, good luck. And that was it. Honestly.
What was the gift in that for you? I mean, I can make an assumption, but I want to know what was inside you.
The gift was like, I am going to have to come out fighting. Yes, I've only got a month's money. Don't just sit looking at it. Do something. So I went and I got all of my old diaries, pulled out all of the people that I know, and emailed. And I didn't email to say, have you got any work? Which is really what I wanted to say.
Yeah.
But I just emailed and said, how are you? It'd be great to catch up for a coffee. And what I did was I rebuilt my networks. And through that, the business just started to come back and come back and come back.
Excuse me, sorry. And doing more work that you loved, did it bring about a different kind of work that you wouldn't have had you not been taking dynamic action?
Absolutely. So then it was my accountant, actually, who I absolutely adore, and he said, well, why don't you write different programs? And I thought, why didn't I think of that? He said, and then go to your existing customers and ask them if they will trial them for you. I was like, oh, you're a genius. And that's what I did. So I spent some time writing resilience programs. Actually, I started to read about resilience, started to do courses on it, how change management and organisational change can impact on people, and their heart and their purpose. You know, you said that thing about it's hard to find your heart and purpose when you're working in an organisation. So I thought, how do you do that? And so I wrote my programs and then sold them.
Whilst I remember the question that's on the tip of my tongue, I do think that expecting employees to have a heart and purpose in a job without help and guidance to help them see why, you haven't just landed in this job, somehow you navigated yourself here for a reason. What is it and what is the purpose for you? It's so vital not to expect them to come ready programmed like that, isn't it?
Yeah. And all my programs were designed for the NHS and for local government, so for people that are doing really difficult jobs within constrained environments. So,
and what's the outcome? What's the value? Once they've done this training of where they get connected with their heart and their purpose, and they feel a sense of belonging and pride in the work that they do, how does that affect their day-to-day work or the overall organisational results or experience?
Yeah, so what that does is it helps people to be happier at work.
That word again.
Yeah, to smooth over some of the smaller difficulties, not the big difficulties, like cutting jobs, and they're not like that, but the smaller difficulties. And do you know what really it impacts on? The patients, the users of the service. Because if you've ever been cared for by somebody who is not got their heart in the job, who is unhappy, it will affect you. So my whole purpose around this was, because I'm a nurse, patient care.
Yeah.
And that experience, when you are at your most vulnerable, when you are at your most sick, or your family is in pain, to be cared for by somebody whose heart is in the job makes such a difference.
Yeah, not just to be great at the task or efficient with the task, but it's what you remember as a patient is the kindness, the compassion, the empathy, not how well they put the drip in. They can be forgiven of taking 20 attempts at your arm, providing they bloody care. I love that. And one of the things that I said right at the beginning was that you are a spirit that walks your talk. And when you look back at your nursing and then what you now do as a job, I say in inverted commas, as a joy job, can you see that you're doing what you're always meant to do, providing you stayed, I guess, alert or conscious of the next wave of growth or opportunity or experience, how it all just wove together, but you just had to pay attention?
Yeah, absolutely. I went in to being a nurse when I was 18, and I went in for a reason, because I love people and I enjoy helping people. And that's never left. Never.
Yeah. You're just doing it, weaving in your performance without it being about performance. Performance is the vehicle that all your purposes and your intention is carry through, performance being the training and the training part, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah.
What would you say to anyone that has this stirring or this inkling in them that they know they're meant for more, but inside they're thinking, I daren't look at what that could be because right now it's a white knuckle ride, or right now I've only got the capacity for this current life without considering what more could be. And even that feeling of, who am I to ask for more? What would you say to that or to them?
I would say, take your time. If it's the biggest, scariest thing, take your time, but don't forget it. Don't forget it. Don't let that flame go out. Take some time every day, even in those quiet moments when you go to bed, just to think about that little flame and what is it? And what is it telling you? And what more is it? What is the more? How do you know you're meant for it? And really dig underneath and think to yourself, what am I telling myself that's helping me? And what am I telling myself that's no use anymore? And then just fan that flame. See where it leads. Speak to people. Speak to people. Get a little network. Push out of that safe space. Just a little bit, just a toe. And if you don't like it, bring your toe back in.
Don't have to surrender your whole foot to it.
No, and just think about it. And I suppose a question I ask myself is, if I didn't do this thing, then what would I regret it? What would I regret more? Having a go and not getting there, or having a go and not even trying?
Yeah, it's interesting because I think the reaching out to your network, reaching out to someone, so many people think that they're failing if they reach out, as though that life is a solo sport. It never has been, it never was. Animals don't, they walk in herds. We are hardwired for connection. And so feeling that reaching out to a coach or a friend or a mentor is giving in or a form of failure is I heard that from somebody recently. Oh no, I feel like I need to do this by myself. I need to, and I know that this person would so benefit from having somebody that holds space for them as they do the thinking, weed out the thinking that they're believing that is unhelpful and also untrue, and leave them with the thinking that is resourceful and factual. Yeah. There's so much to be said for somebody helping tend the garden of thinking, and then with that thinking, then decide, what does my more look like? What is it? Is it more joy? Is it more love? Is it more connection? Is it more time for me? Is my more actually less? Is my more meaning I do less and then have more capacity? Is it that I need more softness? Is it that I am meant to do something really brilliant with my life, but I am scared to think what that would be in case what? And so I love that reach out to your connection. You know, that even that conversation with that business coach who said, well, you need to come out fighting. You didn't think about come out fighting until he said, well, it looks like you've got no choice. You've got to come out here fighting. And so what action looks like coming out fighting? Well, it's taking massive, proactive, dynamic action of daring just to say hello to people.
Yeah. Absolutely.
which I think has got scarier for people as social media has taken off, that we feel like we can't just ring somebody up anymore. We have to ask if it's okay if I ring, or sending an email feels imposing or selfish. There's so many thoughts that we have around the proactive action that we back ourselves into just being stuck sometimes,
Yeah,
don't we?
we do. We
What
do.
belief do you hear most commonly blocks people from stepping into their meant for more thinking?
Um, I think the biggest one is that the lack of that self-belief or self-trust. I can't. Other people can, but I can't. And I think that goes back to, I probably have that. Do you know what if I
Yeah.
think about starting my own business, looking at the shops, looking at people running the businesses, and what I was trying to do, I suppose, on an unconscious level, was trying to flip that from I can't to I possibly can. I possibly
There's some
can because if
there's
they
some
can,
assumptions. There's some assumptions, aren't there, that will go unchecked,
yes,
and that we act as though they're factual, not because we believe that they are, but they're just unchecked.
yes,
And that's what having a conversation with somebody does, is it brings to, because we've got somebody that's observing us in being entirely present. When I say observing, I don't mean sitting with a clipboard making notes. I mean like just really being present and taking everything in, listening with our soul, and when somebody's witnessing us, they can hear some thoughts that we don't check. There's so much to pay attention to. We can't pay attention to everything all the time, but what a witness can do, a coach, a trainer, a mentor, can see the thoughts that are being discussed as facts
yes.
that we don't know, because it's just our unconscious streaming,
Well,
isn't it?
it just runs like a ticker tape, doesn't it?
Yeah. Um, so what would be your best tip, best advice for anybody right now in this climate who thinks they're meant for more but doesn't know where to start with the thinking?
I think finding somebody trusted to talk to, maybe writing out some of your thoughts, and then finding somebody trusted to talk to. I think trying to dig underneath what your thinking is. What does more mean? And how do you know you're meant for it? What is it inside you that's telling you that you're meant for more? When you start to look underneath that and start to think, what then is more for me? And then find somebody trusted to talk to. Get it out in some way. Do some reading as well. Reading, I find reading's great. You know, and work on. For me, before I started my business properly and in the first, well, continuous, it's just working on yourself. Working on yourself, personal growth.
So 2 questions then before I release you to the outside world is, when you say someone trusted, what does that mean to you?
Trusted to be objective. Trusted to hold space for you without any without putting themselves in that space. So like a coach, they have no hidden agenda. They've got no attachment. They're just purely a clean vessel in which you can swim in your thoughts, and they can make sure you're safe in that swim and help you to work through what you're thinking. So trusted absolutely not to have their own agenda, to keep that safe space for you, and to have no preconceived ideas. So somebody like that. I mean, your family and friends are fantastic, but they will have preconceived ideas and they will want to keep you safe. So I'll never forget when I wanted to set up my own business, my wonderful dad, who you knew, my wonderful dad said to me, oh my gosh, you've got a mortgage, you've got 2 kids, you're going to need £100,000 in the bank before you even start to think about it. And I thought, I don't even know where that figure came from, but it was his expression of wanting to keep me safe. Basically, he was saying, don't do that because it's really, really scary. So your friends and family are fantastic, but sometimes it's not the right place to put it when you're just fanning the flames of I'm meant for more.
I completely agree. I always think that our newborn thinking needs an incubator.
Yeah.
And it needs to be in an incubator for a little while before it becomes public, because when it becomes public it belongs to everybody else, and our thinking almost belongs to everybody else. Like we try to please too many people, or there's people that we have an idea of that knows more than us, and when that person says something, it then changes the shape of our baby, if you like. And
it does.
You need, and as you say, you need someone who just fans the flames, that you feel safe in thinking the thoughts that you're having. And I think our friends and family, I mean, not ours, because all our friends and family are like, brilliant, go for it, because they've seen us be in business for 20 years and now have seen enough evidence that we can achieve anything we want. But I remember when I was setting up my own business, and I was in the sales team, and we'd just refinanced, so I'd got some share options. That was this is my cut-off time to set up my own business. And the new MD very kindly said to me, would you like to work part-time? It gives you a bit of income. And it gives us a bit of steadiness. And I said, I knew I couldn't because I just knew it would keep me in my comfort zone and my safety. And what I'd end up doing is working full time for part-time pay, because it would be my form of procrastination, not because they were demanding it of me. And but I also remember somebody saying, a manager of a hotel saying, she'll be back. It'll not work. She'll be back. And I thought, I'm not coming back. I've had this experience of working in hospitality from when I was 18, and I was 34, and now I know how young 34 is, now that I'm 55. But I've experienced that. I don't need to keep duplicating the same day, the same year, the same decade over and over again, because I know it. I will learn this new way. And I really respected these people.
Yeah. Can I ask you something? You know, when that manager said, oh, she'll be back, was there an element of anger in there?
Actually, I thought that was at a point when I was a massive people pleaser, because I had no idea whether I was going to be successful or not. I just knew if I put the same energy, effort, integrity, ability into being self-employed as I have done into my career, I should be all right. But I was about to do something I'd only just trained in. I'd just trained to be a clinical hypnotherapist and a coach with a coaching academy and a business coach, of which I learnt tools and techniques that I'd learnt through my sales career already. So I only learnt what I already knew. And a corporate coach. And so I was setting up something I had practiced only in my what they're called, case studies So I thought, I don't know, he could be right. And I was of that kind of era in my life of people, everybody knows more than I do. So it was less about anger and more probably about intimidation. But the Lisa today, you better believe she'd be angry. You better believe she'd breathe some fire over that suggestion. And I'd probably say something like, I won't be, but maybe if you were in my shoes, you might be. Because people can only speak from their own map of the world and their own perception, can't they? Christine, if you hadn't have left your husband, gone for it with your business, who would you be today? If you hadn't have answered the calling, I am meant for more, and I'm going to come out fighting.
Yeah.
Where would you be and who would you be?
So I'd still be me, but less than me. I'd still be in a place of disappointment, I think. Because it's like, I've always got this thing. If you're going to buy something, say for example, a pair of wonderful shoes, and there's only one pair of shoes, and you see them and you love them, and you think, yeah, but can I afford them? And then you go away and you think, yeah, I can. And you go back and they've gone. And you think to yourself, I should have bought them. Gosh, I should have bought them. I always look at things like that. Would I be sad if I missed the opportunity? Absolutely, I would be sad if I missed the opportunity to do what I did. I have learned so much about myself. I've learned so much about running a business. I think I have taught my children so much about resilience and coming out fighting and coming out, like he said, coming out swinging at life when life is a bit poo, really, sometimes. So, yeah, I would still be me, but less than me. Yeah.
That's that saying, isn't it? I'd be a fraction of myself. I'd still be me, but less than me. I'd be a fraction of myself. And we owe it to ourselves to show up for ourselves. I was watching on Facebook. This is the longest goodbye ever. I think I said in my last question 10 minutes ago. But this is what friends do, isn't it?
Absolutely
We're now in the doorway of you leaving the house and we're still talking. But it was a preacher who's a Christian, and he does brilliant stories, and I just can't help but be really drawn to him, listen to him. I'm not a Christian. I'm spiritual in the sense that I love to come from the highest good and love to operate from the heart. But I forgot what my point is now. Does anybody else have this? You set up the story that's going to position the point really well, and the story setting up is brilliant, but I've now forgotten my point.
So there was a preacher that...
what did you say, though, that I said?
So a fraction of self. We're talking about a fraction of self.
Right.
Oh, God, that's not helping.
I want people to comment if they've ever been in this situation where what I was going to say was going to be brilliant. What did he say, though? I know what it is. Come
quick,
to me.
Get it out, quick.
He was saying about the grass is always greener, and he's saying the grass is never greener. And we know this saying, don't we? The grass is always greener on the other side, and your grass isn't greener, the other side isn't greener. It's greener where you water it. And the point that I loved about what he said about that was, and it goes to your point that you said earlier as well about it. You've got to do the work on yourself, and the work sounds like, the word work sounds hard, but it's actually you can't not. And the work can be exploring. What do I think? Why do I think that? And watering our own thoughts. We would call it fanning the flames of our own thoughts, because it's like it's an igniter, isn't it? It's like this. It shines out rather than watering it. It feels like putting it out. But you know, who would we be if we didn't follow our heart? And I think our heart. You were saying to me the day about the three brains that we have. You know,
Yeah, fascinating
just
stuff.
share again before we go.
So the it's related to neuro-linguistic programming, but it's relatively new. I can't remember there's two gentlemen that have developed this theory that we have a heart brain, a head brain, and a gut brain, and the neuroscience would suggest that is true, because in the heart and the head and the gut we have a cluster of neurons that mirror our what we know as a traditional brain. And we've known that for a long time, you know, the mammalian brain and the lizard brain and then the higher centres. We've known that for a long, long time. However, what sense they're making of it is to align your heart and your head and your gut when making decisions. So if you think about the last decision that you made, what was your heart telling you? What was your head telling you? And what was your gut telling you? You know, so the shoe analogy, it might be, I see the shoes and my heart is saying, oh my gosh, I love them. They're just the right colour red. And my head is telling me, yeah, but they're 150 quid. That's just ridiculous. And my gut's telling me, yeah, but
You'll regret it.
would you be sad? Would you be sad if you missed them? And when you align them, you might find that your gut says, nah, just leave them, they'll be fine. Or your gut might say, you'd be so sad. So
I
yeah,
love
just
that. I love that. And I think so often following your heart seems woolly, fantasy, dreamlike, head in the clouds, or actually the heart has got an intelligence. It does have a brain, and it does communicate with us. And I think the conscious brain's job is to find a way to give your heart what it wants. And the gut part, if I'm to put it into Lisa speak, the gut part is, does this feel right for me? Yeah, it's scary. Scary is fine. Does it feel right though? Do I have more energy when I think about doing this thing? Do I feel alive? Do I feel inspired? Do I feel drive? Or do I feel drained, flat, tired, fatigued?
absolutely, absolutely. And I think that unconscious, for me, that's the seat of your wisdom. The gut is the seat of your
Seat
wisdom.
of your wisdom. Love that.
And it gathers, because your brain gathers information from everywhere all of the time, and your gut transforms that into wisdom. And there's a brilliant book called Blink. Have you read that one?
I haven't. I know of it.
Yeah, and it's how do we know without actually knowing? You know, when an art critic or sees a painting and says immediately, oh, that's a fake, but he hasn't even had chance to look at it properly, but he just instinctively knows. That's something about your wisdom that is gathered over time. And maybe it's tapping into that wisdom as well. When you're meant for more, tap into your wisdom.
Oh, that's a brilliant note to leave this on. Tap into your wisdom rather than allowing our fear of success. Navigators.
Yeah.
Christine Mclean. Thank you so much. This has been, I've interrupted such a lot because I've just relate with everything that you say, and thank you for sharing your own personal experiences and your own truth, because so many people will relate to that bridge they've got to cross. And I hope that they feel reassured that they're fully equipped themselves to take it. But like you say, find someone that's trusted, that can hold you whilst you're in that space and help you see that if you can dream it. If your mind can show you it, then your mind can find the way to do it and be it. Quick final, do you do one-to-one coaching sessions?
I do.
You do. So if
Yeah.
anybody out there feels drawn to Christine and they want something to be held whilst you swim in the thoughts of it, then Christine is taking calls.
I am. Thank you, Lisa.
Thank
I've
you,
really
darling.
enjoyed it. Thank you.
Thank you
Take
so
care.
much.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode. If you would like to be involved in the Meant for More movement, then please drop me a line at lisa@lisaclifford.co.uk. Whether that's you're interested in being on the podcast, taking part in any of the trainings, or would just love to know how you can help empower others, then let's have a conversation. Thank you for listening, and we'll connect again very soon.